The Israeli army has launched air attacks on the Syrian Defense Ministry and near the presidential palace in the capital Damascus as it continues strikes in the southern city of Suwaida. The Hague's Group's emergency ministerial meeting on Palestine closed on Wednesday in Bogotá, Colombia, with a final declaration focused on the suspension of military trade with Israel. A Cuban parliament evaluates and discussed on Wednesday the progress of government programs related to the nation's economic, political, and social situation. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll be with the news. Stay with us. The Israeli army has launched air attacks on the Syrian Defense Ministry and near the presidential palace in the capital Damascus as it continues to strike in the southern city of Suwaida. The strikes come after Israel threatens to increase attacks if Syrian government forces are not withdrawn from the south of the country, where there has been fighting between the Druze and security forces. The attacks have reportedly killed 3 people and injured 34 others. The airstrikes target the presidential palace in the Syrian capital and the General Staff building. Meanwhile, after the raid in the Suwaida region, the Syrian de facto government assured that it will hold all those involved in the clashes against the Druze majority population accountable. In this context, the regime reported that it is closely monitoring the recent violations affecting some areas of the province, describing them as a criminal and illegal behavior. Following the escalation in Suwaida, hundreds of Druzians in the occupied Syrian Golan stormed the Syrian border, and on Wednesday, according to the Israeli media, hundreds of Druzians cut off the Syrian border in calls for Israel to curb violence in southern Syria. Moving on, the Hague Group's emergency ministerial meeting on Palestine closed on Wednesday in Bogotá, Colombia, with a final declaration focused on the suspension of military trade with Israel. The meeting's final declarations vows to begin the process of actions orienting steps to open the door for practical actions to force Israel to comply with international law. In the statement, the suspension of military trade with Israel in rejection of the actions of that country armed forces was announced. Precisely, the Deputy Minister of Colombia, Mauricio Jaramillo, read the group's commitment to prevent the supply of armed military fuel and dual-use equipment to Tel Aviv. And during his remark at the closing ceremony, Palestinian State Minister Mansour highlighted the courage of the participants as they seek practical steps to force Israel to comply with international law.
They had a very intense, serious, and very productive discussion, which was culminated in the adoption of this declaration. From Bogota, declared that we are beginning the process of action-oriented steps by those courageous ones at the beginning who have determined that they will open the door for practical steps in order to force Israel to comply with international law and with the will of the international community as we see it reflected in many resolutions in the Security Council, in the General Assembly, in the Human Rights Councils, and in other components of the United Nations.
And Colombia's head of state, Gustavo Petro, affirmed that the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip is an experiment of the global elites.
The world may become very efficient, but there will be slaves again, and the slaves will revolt. Gaza is simply an experiment of the mega-rich to show all the peoples of the world how to respond to a rebellion of humanity. They plan to bomb all of us, at least in the south, but it will end up like bombing themselves with foreign weapons.
A Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil met with his Colombian counterpart Rosa Yolanda Villavicencio to strengthen bilateral cooperation relations. The head of the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry said that during the meeting, importance was given to strengthening the binational economic zone with the aim of boosting the economy and cross-border trade between the two countries. Ivan Gil also highlighted the backing of President Nicolás Maduro at the ministerial meeting held in support of Palestine. And Cuban Parliament evaluates and discussed on Wednesday the progress of government programs related to the nation's economic, political, and social situation. Prime Minister Manuel Marrero Cruz presented the report on the fulfillment and impact of the implementation of the government's program to create these torsions and boost Cuba's economy. During the day's sessions, deputies and experts discussed the results in key sectors such as agricultural production, energy, and state companies' efficiency. On the other hand, President Miguel Díaz-Canel underscored the significant advances in the implementation of public policies, but admit there were still obstacles due to the global crisis and the financial and economic blockade imposed by the United States. And now we'll take a very short break, but we'll be right back with a special interview with the UN rapporteur Francesca Albanese, which was in Colombia, and she's with us in a special interview from the south and of course for teleSUR. We'll be right back. Stay with us.